Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this session with us at Ignite 2021. I'm Shravna Mukherjee, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Lead within Microsoft Endpoint Manager team.
My name is Danny Guillory. I'm a Senior Program Manager on the Configuration Manager team.
Together, we will be talking about different ways to connect Windows endpoints to the cloud and discuss the advanced values that we get with cloud attachment. Over the past 20 months, we have seen monumental shifts in the way we work. With the evolving work patterns, organizations are returning to offices while empowering employees to work from anywhere to incorporate flexibility. Today, employees are increasingly off-network, demanding a secure and productive PC experience. We also see that there is a 250% growth in the customers who are attaching endpoints to the cloud and a 38% increase in the cloud-connected endpoints.
As a Senior Program Manager, I work with quite a few customers. I do have one-on-ones with several customers. Some of the feedback you see here is the things that I hear all the time. It's too complicated. Don't have Azure AD or AD. I don't understand the value. My security team's blocking me. These are all things we hear quite often when we talk to different customers. The thing that I would take from this is basically if a customer wants to accelerate, they need to educate. Every time I have a call with a customer, they consistently see the value after having a conversation. So it basically shows me that when I have conversation with customers, they're confused. The air is not clear, the water is muddy. So when we have that conversation, we actually get to clear the air, talk about facts, dispel some FUD, but we actually get to the value of the solution and then help them enable and realize that value in their own environments today.
Our goal for this session is to help you understand the facts, the risks, and the values so that you can make an informed choice about which path works the best for you. So let's get started. To attach Windows endpoint to the cloud, you need a management solution. Microsoft Endpoint Manager is a cloud intelligent, unified management solution which allows you to manage and secure your on-premise and cloud endpoints. Configuration Manager is an on-premises management solution to manage desktops, servers, and laptops that are on your network or internet-based. If you have either of these management solutions, you can start enabling your cloud Windows endpoints today.
So yes, when we talk to customers, it's an exciting journey, right? As they go through, there's various different ways when we talk about endpoint management. And the key word for me here is about transformation. Customers are at point A today. They want to get to point B. There's quite a few ways to get there. Managing Windows endpoints fully with the cloud, that works, right? Some customers that works for, some customers that are much more mature, having management solutions on site, having an investment in IT staff, having a real investment in workflows and operationalizing the various different pieces that basically make their environment manageable, secure. All those things tend to give different flavors to how customers want to choose to consume the cloud. Some customers can go straight to the cloud. Some customers need a stepping stone into the cloud, right? So when we look at how they step into the cloud, we can look at different ways that you can connect your on-premise estate into the cloud world, or you start in the cloud world and then enroll your devices into that on-premise solution to get some of that value, some of those things that you had on site that you really just don't want to take, lift, and shift to the cloud. Those are all things that you should evaluate as you go forward and start looking at the cloud. So as customers discover and investigate what pieces of the cloud they want to consume it at your own pace. Cloud attaching definitely is that stepping stone that will allow you to move at your own pace, do things at your own scale, as well as minimize the risk.
Thanks, Danny, for explaining the different pathways to connect Windows endpoints to the cloud. Now let's talk about enabling Cloud Console. I have a set of questions for Danny, and let's see if you can help us figure out how to cloud attach. So Danny, what is tenant attach?
That's a great question. Tenant attach is where the server infrastructure on-prem makes a connection to the Cloud Console, giving customers the value of that on-premise estate being available to them in that Cloud Console. So no need to go through timely, painful migrations. They can continue to use their investments in on-prem until they're ready to actually go all in onto the cloud.
So if we enable tenant attach today, does it mean that my devices are now managed in the cloud?
When I have conversation with customers, this is probably the first thing they ask me is, hey, my devices are in the internet and they're talking to the cloud? Not necessarily, right? Because you logged into a cloud console, you just get to see your on-premises investments, right? All the applications that you package, all of the deployments you made of your applications, the scripts, all of that investment you've done on-prem, we just allow it to be available through you to you through that cloud console. So your endpoint itself, the device, it is actually not talking to the cloud services. It is still talking to that on-premise estate the same way it was talking to it the day before you turned on or enabled that cloud console. If it was using VPN, if it was using intranet, it's using the exact same thing even after you enable the cloud console. This, again, is a relationship between the server and the application and the cloud console itself.
Good point. So does that mean that there is any kind of deployment risk added to it?
When we talk about risk, related to cloud attach and enabling that cloud console, there's not really any risk where the actual endpoint is not talking to the Microsoft Cloud Services. The endpoint, before or after, is communicating the exact same way. So if you go enable a cloud console today, if you never logged into the console, you'll never know anything happened. When we look at that cloud console, it's really a relationship between the server and the cloud console. It has almost nothing to do with the actual endpoint itself. The endpoint doesn't even know anything's happened. The endpoint will still talk to your infrastructure like nothing ever happened.
Okay, great. So that means no risk, and we are going to attach the infrastructure, the server, to basically the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Cloud. Does that mean that we need to have any kind of prerequisites to really enable tenant attach?
Customers are always asking, what are those prerequisites? It's really not a lot of prerequisites, but one of the main prerequisites is being able to authenticate with the cloud service. There is an Azure AD application that will get created for you that basically handles authentication, right? So making sure you are who you are to access and retrieve the data. So you need to make sure you log in with a high level account. I tell customers, if you can grab the global admin, go let that person log in. The concern that I hear about that, again, thinking about your earlier question, risk, customers will say, oh, were you storing that somewhere and saving it for later? We're really not. We're actually just using that global admin account so we can connect to your Azure AD and then get the application you need for the authentication. And we're 100% sure customers want that authentication so they can look at it, manage it, audit it, all those type of things that the security team is going to love to do.
Great. So now I have one last question for you, Danny. Why do we care about the values, and what values do we really get from the tenant attach feature?
So when we look at the cloud console, right, some of the things that I think customers really want to take advantage of, again, especially talking to customers, quite often, they want that instant cloud value, right? So that instant satisfaction, they did something, what do I get for that action I just took? So instant satisfaction in whatever they just executed or tried to get. No risk, no change to workflow. Being on the other side and being a customer for 15 years, IT director for 3, I managed a lot of risk. And that's what, calling up the corporate chain did for me, is help understand risk and understand how to mitigate that risk. And that's the number one thing I think makes customers more comfortable when I have a conversation with them. It's every time I talk to customers, like, if I enable this, am I getting like 200 calls on my way home when I leave the office? No. Again, if you enable the cloud console, your devices don't even know anything that's going on, right? So if you never logged into the cloud console, you wouldn't even see the value that you got. So nothing is actually going to change. And this is probably where I spend a lot of the conversation and dialogue talking to customers, because the security team will hop on the phone, ask these questions. The device management guy's so worried he turns something on and everything goes crazy. Look, rest assured, when you enable tenant attach, your endpoints aren't going to go crazy. They won't know anything that's going on. The relationship is between the server estate as well as the on-premise state. No impact to device or user. Again, talking about that risk. There's no impact to the device, the user, the relationship, server, cloud console. Enhancing that employee experience with analytics. This, by far, I think is one of the better values when we're talking about cloud console, tenant attach, again, whatever name you want to use. Whenever we talk about the analytics, everybody wants to be more proactive, more predictive. Predicting what's happening in their environment allows the customer to be proactive, the IT pro to be proactive, and get ahead of the game instead of fighting the fire all day, every day. That gets pretty daunting, depressing, because you're not really doing anything except treading water, right? So whenever you enable that cloud console, you can take advantage of the rich analytics experience. Like by far, if you're not doing anything, definitely turn it on. The insights you get should show you actions that you need to do in your environment, right? Maybe you have a end user that's having a very hard time with their laptop, always logging support cases. There's some things you can go look at that I think I'm going to go into some detail and show you here in a little bit, but there's things you can do to help provide some relief for those users that are having issues and help you as IT pro, again, be more productive, be more proactive and predictive of what's going on in your environment. I can ramble there. Like all of these things are actually really, really great. Last two, I guess, talking about device actions. Device actions, whenever you enable the cloud console, is definitely different than the co-managed actions, right? The co-managed actions are really just your Intune actions that you get to take advantage of. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Simplifying your IT operations and reducing help desk costs. This one is really dear to me because I remember being on the other side and my IT department was huge, right? And whenever I worked with my team, I had a very large help desk. Guess what I would not have to do today? Install consoles after every upgrade, right? So the 20 people on my help desk, they could leverage the cloud console. I would not have to go through another upgrade of the application. They could just log into the cloud console and be done. So I've already saw tremendous instant value and time savings because I don't have to deal with calls about this console didn't upgrade, this one didn't upgrade. How do I fix this? Do that. All that stuff is gone. Endpoint.microsoft.com, cloud console, move on. All right, so let's take a look at what the next thing may be, right? So I talked about how do you enable it and some of the value you get from the analytics perspective. This is actually the properties of the Cloud Attach Wizard. When you look at the configure upload section, you see there's a checkbox at the top, basically enabling my cloud console, and the bottom is the enabling the endpoint analytics. Again, super important. Definitely make sure you got these two checked. What I think is happening with customers and why customers don't have this cloud console and get to see all this cool value that I'm about to show you is that co-management was actually something that we got out the door first, right? Co-management was the thing that got out the door first and our customers went and enabled it. And then they heard about tenant attach later because we brought it later. And then they didn't go back and enable it. If you have co-management enabled today, definitely go into your properties and enable this setting because you're going to see a whole bunch of value that I think the next slide is actually a demo. Yeah. It's a demo, so let's go in and look and see what it looks like. I'm looking at my cloud console. Again, endpoint.microsoft.com brings me to Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. And if I clicked on Windows devices, you're going to see a whole list of Windows devices. I just saved you from having to look at me click through a bunch of stuff. I did a filter, and I know that the devices that managed by column shows Configuration Manager, these devices are specifically, again, tenant attached, leveraging that cloud console. These three devices you see right here are not talking to the cloud services. So let's go ahead and look at one of them. When we talk about that cloud attach and that relationship between the server infrastructure to the cloud console, what you see here is I got a whole bunch of stuff that just showed up on the left-hand side. And I get some actions at the top. So earlier I mentioned this phrase, on-prem actions driven from the cloud. This is exactly what I was talking about right here. So you can see here that I'm able to click on any one of these actions, three actions at the top, and invoke that client action. So I can click machine policy, and we will send a fast channel notification to that device to basically request machine policy. Same for user policy, and the same for app eval cycle. Now, these details you see here directly at the top under Essentials came from Configuration Manager. That's basically just the information. Think of header information. We can actually go here on the left-hand side and see quite a few different things. But let's stick to, I'm going to hit some highlights so you can definitely go enable it and check out some other cool stuff. So endpoint user experience, you're going to see I don't have a lot of data here, so I'm not going to actually show anything. But you can see here, these tabs is where the data would show, right? So as you enable endpoint analytics in this cloud attach cloud console area, you will be able to see all these different things. Again, I don't have any data to actually go through and see because it hasn't been on long enough, but you would actually have data. But I can go and look at all these different things. And here's the fun stuff I'll tell you about. Client details. What just happened when I clicked that? We sent a basically command to your on-premises infrastructure. We requested this information inline, all secure. So earlier we talked about that Azure AD application that you need. We did the authentication from the cloud all the way to on-prem to request this information. I can see properties, I can see boundaries. If the device was in a boundary, you would see that. I think I got one later, I'll show you. All of this stuff right here came from my on-premises estate. And there's even a way that, hey, let's say, hey, I don't trust you. I want to see it. Like trust but verify. You can literally go look at the logs of your on-premises estate and see this call coming in with the proper credentials for the user. Another thing that I think is totally amazing, again, these are things I wish I had when I was on the other side. So I click timeline and you see nothing. Don't worry about it. Check this out. If I hit filter and go and just change the date, let's say I pick the 1st, and I'm gonna look just to show you all the stuff we collect or can see. Look, we can see all of this stuff that's happening from the source name, and then we can see different event levels. So watch when I hit refresh or apply here, this screen refreshes. Now, Shravana, if this was your device, I can look and say, hey, look, you had a boundary group change. Oh, you had an application that crashed on you. I can see different updates. Hey, you did some updates. So if you were an end user that called me and said, hey, my device is running slow, I can actually look and see what's going on with your device instead of saying, click on start, type this command, tell me what you see, do all this extra stuff, right? Those conversations get kind of daunting and taxing. But as you can see, I got information at the tip of my fingers that's actually valuable and very useful. Some other things to run through, collections, right? If I want to see all the different collections that this device is in, I can see, because you could be saying, hey, I don't have this application. And I could be thinking that you should be in a specific collection. I can validate that here. Again, I didn't even open the actual console. I just logged into the cloud console, endpoint.microsoft.com, and bam, I can see this information. All right, so we saw timeline, we saw collections. Let's go ahead and look at applications, right? So if we look at applications, we can see that, hey, look, all these applications are installed or not installed on the device. I can even go in to see and pivot, run some queries if I wanted to. We'll talk about some more of this stuff a little bit later, but just trying to keep the show moving. And we can even see scripts. Again, we talked about earlier, leveraging the investments that you already had on-prem. Why pick up, lift, shift? Why migrate? Why recreate work when you can reuse the same work you've already had? Definitely help you get from point A to point B a lot faster. So you can see here, look, I have some scripts in my environment, hit run script. And then you can see, if I had hundreds of scripts, thousands of scripts, they would show up right here and I can execute the scripts right there on the device. When we introduced scripts inside the Configuration Manager console many iterations ago, customers took that and built out some great scripts that they use in their environment, whether it be diagnostic purposes, operational purposes. All of those are still available to you from the cloud console. So, at some point, this makes sense from living in the space of, hey, I want to get into the cloud, but how do I get there with no risk, little risk? This is the best point to get into the cloud. And that's it.
That sounds great. I think we have a fair understanding of how easy it is to enable Cloud Console with tenant attach. Let's do a similar exercise for CoManagement. Danny, I have a set of questions for you for CoManagement as well. So what is CoManagement?
CoManagement is actually now where your endpoint itself is actually going to be the one talking to the cloud services. So you actually get best of both worlds, right? So think of management, add co in the front, and what do you get? You get to be managed by both systems. You could actually have some workloads be driven from on-prem and other workloads driven from the cloud. Again, whatever makes sense for your business. This is the ability for you to live in both spaces without having to make decisions and really hard decisions, right? So if you cut from one to the other without CoManagement, you're going to be faced with some hard decisions to make, right? So we talked earlier about that medium and large businesses that have significant investment in their on-premises state or in IT staff, both. Cutting from one to the other, from point A to point B, is something they probably think of and consider, but it may not go as far as they think it does because there's a lot of ties back on-prem. So whenever you leverage co-management, you get to live in that middle area between both systems, right? Especially if you're using a configuration manager on a state on-site, then it really just makes sense to enable that co-management and make those decisions at your pace, at your own will. No force that's pounding down on you to actually get to point B faster and then make more riskier decisions. Again, it's a no-brainer when it comes to co-management, right? Being able to move those individual workloads how you want, when you want, it really just makes sense. Some customers will say, hey, I need this, I need that. It's not the fact that those things aren't coming. We just have to kind of figure out where those things fit in the bigger ecosystem. So lots of things even come into co-management as customers continue to enable more co-management.
I think you already answered my second and third question, but I'm still going to ask that who is the management authority when we are doing co-management? Is that something that we can choose?
Yeah, it's actually something you do choose, right? And your third question here is, again, that risk aspect, managing that risk. I am of the camp, enabling co-management is no risk. And yes, everybody's like, oh my God, this guy just said no risk. Turning on co-management is no risk. Now, I could be on the camp of little risk also, right? Again, as an IT pro, I would think of it from this angle. Are you reaching out and touch a device? Yes, that equals risk. What am I doing to that device though? I'm only taking ownership of that MDM stack, meaning that the MDM stack will be managed by Intune, and I can now then have extra capabilities. That doesn't mean by the enablement that we're switching any workloads. Your workloads are still managed wherever they were, right? So if your workloads, individual workloads are all managed by ConfigMan or all managed by the cloud, wherever it is, we're just gonna leave the workloads alone. We really just wanna give you the value of adding co-management to the device. And there's gonna be lots of value coming. There's lots of value today. So definitely customers should enable that workload. And again, sticking with the statement, right, the risk, I would tell you it's no risk, but I could also agree that it is little risk. I could definitely not be convinced it's high risk and everything is going to blow up, because that's just really not the case. I mean, anything can happen, but the chances of devices blowing up, high CPU usage, disk usage, those things are very low when you're talking about just the enablement of co-management. And I want to make sure that we separate the enable of co-management from the actual moving of the workload. The moving of the workload does increase the risk, and that's being very transparent. And customers should understand that when you move a workload, you're moving it to the cloud. And that's where I would definitely reevaluate the different risks as far as what is happening, because you're going to need to know what is assigned when that workload is moved to the cloud. Hopefully that makes sense. And if anybody has any questions, let me know after. I'm definitely game for more conversation with customers.
Great. Since you spoke about moving of the workloads, let's say that if I have enabled co-management today, what do you recommend? Which workload should I be thinking of switching first?
The workload that I know customers ask about a lot is the compliance workload, right? Because they want to measure compliance and they want that compliance to be measured in the cloud. So that probably is the number one workload of interest. Now, because I know the product and the capabilities at a very deep level, I would say one of the workloads that intrigue me, if again, looking at the risk aspect, is the client apps workload. The client apps workload is the only workload that gives you extra flexibility. What do I mean by extra flexibility? If you take that workload, that slider, we call it workload slider, whichever one you want to use. If you take that slider and move it to pilot or Intune, guess what? Your estate can take advantage of the application distribution system in Configuration Manager or Intune. So that workload, again, looking at the risk, is even lower risk if you want to dabble as far as what workload should I move that's not going to cause a panic, a stir, or anything like that. You can move that workload to Pilot or Intune and rest assured, again, nothing else is going to happen. Your devices, again, no high CPU usage, no disk drive max out. You're literally just moving a workload. And if the device isn't targeted, guess what? They will see still the same thing they saw. So again, looking at that risk, right? That's the best workload to move and still maintain that minimum risk. Compliance workload is definitely intriguing too, because you want to increase the security bar, right? That client apps workload doesn't necessarily do that. But when I talk to security teams, or when security teams jump on the calls, sometimes they're group calls with the IT pros or the device management team, definitely the compliance workload comes up all the time.
Thank you. As Danny clearly pointed out the values of attaching your endpoints to the cloud, let's dive into some of the key benefits of the cloud attached endpoints.
All right, so let's look at some values of co-management. Instant cloud value, again, minimal risk, right? We talk about reaching out, changing the MDM stack. If you want to call it a minimal risk, great, go for it. No change to workflow. Same thing you did yesterday is the same thing you're going to do after you enable a console, after you enable co-management, right? There's nothing that's going to change that you need to go redo how you're deploying apps, deploying updates, deploying baselines. Those things you did, as soon as you enable it, they didn't change. You have the ability to change them when you start moving the workflows, but you're good to go. Just enable it and you're ready to go. Remote actions capabilities. Those are the remote actions from Intune. Restart, autopilot, reset, all of those things that we have in the actual Intune console when a device is enrolled, you now have access to. You actually have access to extra security capabilities too. So definitely go and look into that stuff. Rich analytics. The rich analytics, again, is a game changer for me. If I was back on the other side again, it's a no-brainer that I would use it. The value that you can get on what you need to be looking at your estate is a game changer again, right? If you're somebody that wants to stop firefighting, you want to actually see what's going on in your estate, not saying that you won't work, but the more you actually know about what you think is going on in your environment, the more you could be better prepared when you come into the mornings, go into meetings, change meetings. I mean, this will actually even help you with your CAB meetings, right? Because I remember CAB meetings, having to go explain why we wanted to do X changes and then having conversations around the table on what data I was using. I can actually have data-driven conversations now, which is, to me, one of the bigger aspects of enabling co-management and the cloud console. Managing endpoints from anywhere is super important. With everybody being everywhere now, working from everywhere, I'm at home recording this. So it's super important that you're able to reach out and help your customers, whoever they be, at any state, at anywhere that they can be reached. So it's super important. Risk-based controls. Again, that conditional access is a huge workload, especially when we talk to customers, especially their security teams. Again, with it being work from home, being the new normal, now you can go and be more secure from wherever you are. So those risk-based conditional access is super important, and definitely work with your teams internal to have that conversation and loop Microsoft in as needed. Modern provisioning through autopilot. I could probably spend another hour talking about this, but obviously I'm not. Autopilot's huge. Being able to get devices into end users' hands already configured or pre-configured, or let them go through a configuration. Again, there's 3 different workflows I just named that you could go over and be able to use in your estate to make sure that the end user does get a device, does get something secure, and there's some things that are not compromised as they go through that provisioning process. Lots of flavors there. That's a whole different ball game. So make sure you check out some of the autopilot sessions. All right, cool. So let's check out a device that is co-managed in my environment. So when you can see here, I look at my devices, my Windows devices, I can see that the devices are managed by, it says co-managed. So if I just go and pick on a specific device, let's just pick on this one because I know it's on my desk. I can here see all the different information that now co-managed allows me. So you can see that even from the prior demo earlier, look, all of the actions from Cloud Attach are still there, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking here at all the other actions that I get also. So I get a much richer management experience when I look at the various different actions that I have. So we talked earlier, right, about the device actions at the top. So you see I can have access to all my device actions at the top. I can click on the 3 dots here and even see I get more actions. So if I want to update Defender Security Intelligence, rotate my BitLocker key, rename the device, I can do all these actions. You can even see I have my 3 actions here from, again, being tenant attached, enabling that cloud console. I get those actions also. It doesn't mean anything functions different at all. You can see here that I do have some workloads managed by the cloud. So all of these workloads down here are actually managed by the cloud. So I can also see my configuration manager agent state, whether it's healthy, not healthy, the last time it communicated. So I got a rich set of actions here on the left-hand side looking at my hardware, my devices, applications that got discovered. I can see the different levels of hardware or different properties of the hardware. Device compliance, again, talking with a lot of security teams, right? Everybody wants to know what the compliance state of their device is. So here's all the different compliances that I had applied to the device. Device configuration, again, it's the workload is being driven from the cloud. So I can see that, look, here are the configurations that are deployed, and here they're actually succeeded as applying to the device. So whatever you've done from the cloud, as far as managing this device, again, because the workload is moved over to the cloud, I can actually manage this device from the cloud. I have ultimate flexibility here as far as what I want to do, how I want to take action, and what I want to service on that device, whether it be reusing from my on-premise state, as well as using new capabilities in the cloud. All right, cool. And that's the demo. And now this is kind of a really good segue to the next area with co-management as well as cloud attach. All right, so on to our third scenario, cloud attach with co-manage. So I kind of just gave you a sneak peek into it. Why? Because the device you just saw was both cloud attach and co-management. Let's talk about it a little bit. So what are the prerequisites? Earlier you heard me mention that a lot of customers are co-managed that haven't taken advantage of the cloud attach tenant attach area. So if you're co-managed already, you most likely have just the checkbox to go enable so you can see that investment that you have on-prem and that be exposed to you or available to you, at least in the cloud console. It's very important that you understand that that's there to help you in that transition from point A to point B. It doesn't mean you got to stay there. Some customers will live there longer, some customers will live there shorter. Just really depends on what your requirements are and how you want to get from point A to point B. I encourage customers to use it, but not just because it's there, because you will find some value into it. And we do have more things in the future that we're building on it. This is not a platform we built to throw away. We built this platform to add to it and give you more value. So let's talk about some of the strategic benefits of cloud attach endpoints. And Shravana, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. As Danny clearly pointed out the values of attaching your endpoints to the cloud, let's dive into some of the key benefits of the cloud-attached endpoints. First is empowering users to work from anywhere. Second is improving end-user experience with the rich analytics and remediations. You can take advantage of proactive remediations. You can take advantage of the application reliability or the work from anywhere report today, which is part of the endpoint analytics. Enabling modern security strategy. Security is a key driver of the management. Risk-based controls like conditional access ensures your endpoints are secure and compliant before getting access to any of the sensitive resources. Onboarding endpoints with modern provisioning. Zero-touch provisioning allows you to provision new devices, drastically reducing the time IT spends on deploying, managing, and retiring devices. Lastly, you can reduce the help desk costs and manage your devices from anywhere. With that, I'll let Danny take us through the last slide of call to action.
Thanks everybody for spending time with us today. Hopefully you have a better understanding of what cloud attach is, co-management is, the differences, the values. Basically, hopefully you understand how these different capabilities will help you adopt the cloud, transition to the cloud. This whole session was really to educate you. Again, educate is the only way you're going to be able to accelerate. Getting rid of the FUD, understanding the facts, and hopefully you've gotten that today from our session. Thank you. Have a good day.